It's a little embarrassing to share this, but I'm gonna pull back the curtain and share 3 fitness recommendations that I believed for almost a decade and I no longer believe. Now, I've talked lots about different fitness myths, most of which I've not fallen for myself, but these I did, and they're tricky little ones. So, what are the 3 recommendations I no longer believe? Number 1, you have to do barbell squats, deadlifts, and bench press for the best results. Number 2, doing more sets always gets you better results. And number 3, more protein always leads to more progress. Now let's talk about each of these. So first, you have to do barbell squats, deadlifts, and bench press for the best results. Let me be clear. I'm a huge fan of these movements. I'm not saying people shouldn't do them. I would say that the vast majority of people should be including them in their program, but you don't necessarily need to be married to them. The reason they're great exercises, 1, the barbell is just awesome for just strength building, overall strength. These movements are fantastic because they're very, you get a big bang for your buck, if you will. You're hitting a lot of muscle groups with one movement, which means more effective and more efficient workouts, less time in the gym. That's a good thing. They're fantastic movements. So the vast majority of our clients do at least 1, if not all 3 of these movements. But I'm just here to say, it's okay if you need to choose a different exercise. Now, before we jump to, getting away from doing one or all of these in your programming, I just want to say first, you should take the time to learn how to do these movements properly. The vast majority of people, and unfortunately, many personal trainers themselves don't know how, or trainers might know how, but they don't know how to properly coach an everyday man or woman on how to do these. Find yourself an expert trainer like us at Steel Strength Training who are very good, very precise at teaching you how to do these movements properly. All right? Now, after having done that, 90+% of you will find that these movements are fantastic for you and you'll definitely want to keep them in the program because there's lots of benefits and really no downside. Again, this is not bashing these movements. They're fantastic. But to give you a personal example from my own life, I got away, finally, from doing the bench press as my primary chest movement. Now, I will include it in my program from time to time, but for about 8+ years, I knew in my head, at least towards the end of those 8 years, that if I were working with a client that, just like me, I would know that they would get better results just because of how the movement feels and the way that my body's set up, that this client, myself, would get better results by switching to primarily dumbbell movements. Well, what do you know? I finally, after so long, divorced myself from making the bench press my primary pressing or chest movement, and my chest muscle and strength improved a lot. And so I'm just here to say that, again, I'm a huge fan of all these movements, but there are instances where even after learning how to do them properly, you find that there's another movement for a variety of reasons that is better for you. So at the end of the day, while I am a huge fan, and we will continue to do the barbell, squat, deadlift, and bench press, we are not married to those movements. What we are married to is the idea that we want to choose exercises that allow you to train hard, pain-free. All right, number 2, got my little blog post here. We're talking about the concept of doing more sets always gets you more progress. It is true that more sets means more progress, but not always. More sets gives you more progress to a point. All right, so in the fitness industry especially, this tends to be human nature, but especially in the fitness industry, we're obsessed with this idea of if some is good, more is better. But I'll give you a clear example where that is not true. Water is incredibly important. Something like 70%, don't quote me on that. A large chunk, you can quote me on that, of our body is made of water. Water is super, super important and you will absolutely die without water. But too much water will literally land you in the hospital and potentially kill you. Yes, lots of people every year, especially in the summer, drink too much water, not enough electrolytes, and they end up in the hospital or dead due to something called hyponatremia. But anyway, we'll get into that later. But basically, too much of anything, too much of a good thing, can be a bad thing. Water is an example of that. And sets is certainly an example of that. It's absolutely true when it comes to the number of sets you're doing. Now, before we get into this, I just want to say we're making the assumption that every single set is a high quality set, meaning it's using good form, a full range of motion, and taken close to failure. As soon as you stop doing that, if you're way far away from failure, if your form sucks, if you're not doing a full range of motion, then that's a whole different conversation completely. So here's the deal. More sets will get you more progress to a point, but eventually, beyond that point, and that point is different for every individual, beyond that point, your progress actually gets worse. So here's what this looks like. Your first set gets you the most progress. Your second set gets you a lot of progress, but not as much as the first. Your third set gets you a lot of progress, but not as much as the second, and it just keeps slowing down. So each subsequent set is continuing to get you more progress, but the law of diminishing returns is at play here. So here's what this looks like. Your progress, if we got gains over here on the y-axis and number of sets you're doing on the x-axis, it looks like this. Boom, 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 boom. And then we peak, and then we actually start coming down. Because what happens is you don't make as much progress as the number of sets you do. You make as much progress as the number of sets you do, taking into account how many of those sets you can recover from. Meaning, that was a bunch of jumbled words there, but to say it more clearly, you get stronger by creating a stimulus and recovering from that stimulus, not by just having a massive stimulus. Because you could do 1 billion sets and that would probably kill you. But if it didn't, it certainly wouldn't cause gains because it would just create a tremendous amount of fatigue. The goal is not to create as big of a stimulus as possible, but to create the biggest stimulus possible that we can optimally recover from, which is why there's a sweet spot here. So to give you some hard and fast numbers on this, what we know for sure is that a lot of people will start making gains at around 2 to 3 sets per week. Again, these are quality sets, good form, full range of motion, taken very close to failure. You're training hard on these. Just 2 to 3 sets. I'm not saying 2 to 3 sets per week is optimal or maximal. I'm just saying it is effective. Now, most people, pretty much everybody, is going to benefit from bumping that to like 4 to 6 sets per week. You will see more progress at 4 to 6 sets per week than 2 to 3 sets per week. A lot of people, not all, but many people will continue to make more progress even as we go higher in that, doing 7 to 10 sets per week. Now, there are instances where people should do more sets than that. Number one, you got to just take into account individually, how do you respond? Some people do respond better to higher volumes. Also, the longer that you've been training, it's possible you need a lot more sets. But for sure, most people will make gains, especially early on in your journey, with just 2 to 3 sets per week. 4 to 6 is going to be even better for a lot of people. 7 to 10 is going to be even better for a lot of people as well. And then some people will do well going above that. To speak more clearly about these, I just want to share these. Let me pull up this list for you guys that I wrote in my blog. Most of our clients are between 5 and 10 sets per muscle group per week. I should have clarified that. We're talking about per muscle group, not for your whole workout. Next, people with health issues that are a lot older or are super busy will totally benefit from just 2 to 3 sets per week. All right, I've used it myself at times during especially busy times or when I was getting back into training after a lot of my autoimmune health type issues. Rarely do we have clients do more than 10 sets per muscle group per week, but if we do, it's basically always 15 sets or less per week, and it's likely done for a short period of time to focus on a specific body part. The rest of the muscle groups would be still trained in the 5 to 10 sets per week. I think the only people who need more than 15 sets per muscle group per week are people who have already built 80 to 90% of their maximum muscle and strength potential and are trying to get that last 10 to 20%. While this is a super cool goal, this is close to 0 of our clients. If you're just an everyday man or woman trying to get lean, strong, and healthy, even if you want to be really strong, have a really great physique, you can achieve that with these numbers that I've listed without ever going above 10 sets per week. I guarantee it. The other thing is, when in doubt, err on the lower end of sets per muscle group per week because we know you can make gains with very few sets, and it makes sure you don't overdo it and risk injury or burnout. Now, if you experiment with volume and how many sets you do, which I think just about everybody should do so slowly and methodically. Test out doing 2 to 3 more sets per muscle group per week for several months. See how you feel and progress before you add more. All right, last thing that I believed is that more protein always leads to better progress. This is actually true in an isolated case, but we have to look at the whole picture. So recent studies have come out that protein intakes, even well beyond like the top end recommendation that's been out there for a while of 1 gram per pound of body weight per day, having protein intakes even well beyond that will continue to give you better progress. But again, it's all a law of diminishing returns. So if you're like severely under eating protein, getting to a decent amount is gonna give you the most benefit. And then getting from decent to pretty good is gonna give you the next most, but not as much as going from under consuming to a decent amount, et cetera, et cetera. So you're gonna keep getting more benefit, but it does taper off. Now there's not really a downside like there are with the sets, but so that would tell you on that data alone that the more protein you consume, the better progress you make. It's true in an isolated instance, but when we look at the whole picture, that may not be the case. So here's the deal. If you're, and by the way, this is for people who are like the overachievers who are already consuming 1 gram per pound of body weight plus, which is like less than 5% of our clients. But if that's you, this is for you. Most people could stand to eat more protein for sure. Protein is wildly important. It is the building block of the muscle. So I'm not in any way saying we need to get away from protein. Now, if you are eating 1 gram per pound of body weight per day or more, and you're feeling great, you're seeing great results, then ignore this. This isn't for you. But some people find that because their protein's higher, their fats and carbs are lower, they feel a little more lethargic. Sometimes all the protein, it can be hard to digest. And they just don't have as much energy. They're not training as hard. What I found for some of these people, not all, but some people who are consuming that much protein, they'll actually do better, dropping their protein down to about 0.7 to 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, and even dropping it down to 0.7 to 0.8 grams per pound of your goal body weight, not your current body weight. What this does is it gives you like 80+% of, if not higher, 80+% of the benefits of a high protein intake while still allowing plenty of room for lots of fats and carbs. So you feel good, your digestion is good, you can train hard, some people find they recover better, etc. So I'm just here to say, like, just like with, there's a sweet spot for sets, I think there's a sweet spot for you when it comes to protein. And while there may not be, a downside necessarily, like sure, if you keep consuming more protein, at the very least, it's gonna level off. There's not really a downside. The downside comes not because you're eating too much protein, but because you're not getting as much of the other things that make you feel good, fats and carbs. So just some recommendations on this. At a bare minimum, women need to be consuming 60 grams a day, men 80 grams a day. Again, nobody hate me. I'm not saying this is optimal. It's definitely not. But at a bare freaking minimum, when we work with clients who are way beneath this, getting them to this level, life-changing. It makes a huge difference. Now, if we want to go from bare minimum to decent would be 80 grams for women, 100 grams for men. Pretty good would be 100 grams for women, 120 grams for men. If you're doing that, you're doing pretty great. Fantastic is 0.7/0.8 grams per pound of your target body weight. Anything above that, at least as far as I'm concerned, with the everyday men and women, the clients that we work with, is just it's just the cherry on top of the ice cream sundae. If you find you do better with even more protein, go for it. But I'm not talking to people who are trying to get shredded, step on stage as a bodybuilder, or squeeze every single ounce of muscle growth they can out of their program. I am talking to everyday men and women who want to look good, feel good, perform well, who want to be lean, strong, and healthy so they can do the things they love with the people they love. If you hit those targets I just mentioned, you're going to achieve all that and then some. So in conclusion, while I'm a huge fan, you don't have to do barbell squats, deadlifts, and bench press to maximize your results. You need to find a sweet spot when it comes to how many sets per muscle group per week you're doing rather than just doing as many as you can. And when it comes to protein, again, you need to find that sweet spot for you and don't just assume that more is the best. If you have any interest in working with us, click the link below to go to our website. We would love to work with you. We would love to have you join our program designed for everyday men and women, built around strength training, personal training, nutrition coaching, game plan for what you need to do outside the gym, and lots of coaching and accountability every step of the way. If you're interested, click the link below, fill out the form. I'll reach out within 24 hours to schedule your zero pressure phone call where we'll talk about your goals and the details of the program. And if you found this helpful, hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date on our latest fitness and nutrition content.